You stand up, your border collie stands up. You walk to the kitchen, and somehow they're already there, watching you from the doorway. You go to the bathroom, close the door, and they sit right outside it like a guard who hasn't been dismissed, every single time. Most people see this and smile. They call it Velcro dog behavior, file it under adorable, and move on. But what if that read is completely wrong? Not just a little off, fundamentally wrong about what's actually happening in your dog's brain when they shadow your every step? Your border collie isn't following you because they love you. They're following you because you are an unsecured moving asset in an environment that has no one else managing it. And that is a very different thing. So what if this behavior has nothing to do with attachment and everything to do with a job your dog never got to stop doing? Welcome to Collie Mind, the channel built around the real psychology of this specific breed. If you want to understand your border collie at a level most people never reach, subscribe right now. By the end of this video, the next time your dog sits outside that bathroom door, you'll know exactly what's running through their brain, and it will change how you see them completely. To understand why your border collie can't let you leave a room without following, you have to start with what their brain was literally built to do. Border collies carry a predatory motor sequence that was refined over roughly 200 years of selective breeding. That sequence goes orient, stalk, eye, chase, control. Farmers bred out the final steps, the grab, the kill, but kept everything before it, and kept it so reliably that it runs in these dogs like a background process that never fully closes. On a working hillside, that sequence fires on sheep. In your house, it fires on you. When you stand up and walk to the kitchen, your movement triggers the same neural pathway that would activate on an open hillside at the sight of a sheep breaking from the flock. Motion detected. Position of the moving object, unknown. Status, unmonitored. That's the signal their nervous system sends, and it demands a response. This is where the eye comes in, that fixed, low-bodied stare you've probably seen your dog hold for an unsettling amount of time. It's not a personality quirk. It's the stalk phase of the predatory sequence running without a productive outlet, locking onto the nearest moving thing with enough significance to warrant attention. In your living room, that thing is you. 2 centuries of breeding pressure didn't just produce a dog that enjoys herding. It produced a dog whose brain registers unmonitored movement as an unfinished task. Not a preference, not a habit, a neurological loop that stays open until the moving object is back within range and accounted for. There's a dopamine component here too. When your border collie is close to you and tracking your position, their brain is getting a steady reward signal, the same kind of low-level neurological payoff a working dog gets from holding a flock together. Staying near you isn't comfort-seeking the way it might be for a Labrador curling up beside you on the couch. It's task maintenance. It's the brain running a job and receiving feedback that the job is on track. The moment you disappear behind a closed door, that feedback cuts off. The loop is open. The task has no resolution, and a border collie brain without a resolved task is not a brain that simply waits patiently. It's a brain under low-level pressure until the loop closes again. So that explains why they follow. But what they're actually doing while they follow you, that's a different layer entirely. Here's what most people miss. Your border collie following you from room to room is not passive companionship. It's active work. While they trail you through the house, they're doing something that would look, to a behavioral researcher, a lot like continuous environmental assessment. These dogs were bred to read micro-movements at distance across open terrain. A sheep turning its head slightly before breaking from the flock. A border collie catches that before the sheep has fully committed to the movement. That same perceptual sensitivity is fully operational inside your home. As your dog follows you, they're reading your pace, your posture, the angle of your shoulders, the speed of your steps, not because they find you interesting, but because all of that data tells them what you're about to do next. This is anticipatory herding, and it's one of the most distinctive things about how border collies move through space. They don't follow where you are, they position themselves where you're going. If you've ever noticed your dog turning up at the bottom of the stairs before you've reached the top, or waiting at the kitchen entrance before you've left the hallway, that's not coincidence, and it's not magic. They've already run your trajectory through a predictive model built from hundreds of observed repetitions of your movement patterns. They know your route better than you consciously do. Research into herding breed cognition shows these dogs build and update mental models of moving objects in their environment, tracking not just current position but probable future position. This isn't separation anxiety dressed up in smarter clothing. It's genuine predictive mapping, a cognitive process running continuously, using you as the primary data source, and your emotional state is part of that data. A quick, tense walk to the kitchen reads completely differently to your border collie than a slow, relaxed one. They're not just tracking where you go, they're tracking how you feel as you get there, and adjusting their own internal state in real time to match. Now, this is where the border collie diverges completely from every other breed, because the surveillance we just described isn't directed at the household in general, it's directed at you specifically, and that distinction matters more than most people realize. Border collies don't distribute their attachment across a family the way most breeds do. They assign a primary handler, one person who becomes the fixed point their entire psychological world orbits around. Not the person who feeds them most often, not whoever holds the leash, the person whose emotional and physical state they've decided carries the most weight. Once that assignment is made, it runs deep. It shapes how they read every room they walk into. So when you move, you're not just a moving object triggering a neural pathway. You're the most important variable in their entire environment going temporarily off-grid. Losing visual contact with you isn't uncomfortable for a border collie the way a separation might feel for a more socially flexible breed. It's a genuine cognitive disruption, like a working dog losing sight of the flock mid-run on a hillside with no instruction on what to do next. The cortisol piece connects directly here. Border collies absorb their handler's stress at a level researchers have found is unusually pronounced in herding breeds. Following you isn't only about tracking your position, it's also about staying close enough to read your emotional state and regulate their own against it. Your mood is their weather. A calm you produces a calmer dog. A tense, distracted you produces a dog that follows more tightly, watches more carefully, and works harder to get a read on what's coming. This is exactly where misreading the behavior starts to cost something real. Laughing it off keeps you from seeing what your dog is actually communicating. Shutting the door to build independence doesn't teach your border collie to self-soothe. It removes the job without replacing it, which leaves a dog that's both anxious and genuinely confused about why the role they were built for was suddenly revoked. The drive doesn't dissolve because the door is closed. It just has nowhere to go. A border collie in a modern home with no flock to manage will find a flock, and in most households that flock is one person, moving from room to room, making coffee, answering emails, watching TV, with a dog tracking every step like the whole operation depends on it, because to them it does. Pull these layers together and what you have isn't a clingy dog. You have a neurological system running exactly as designed, in an environment it was never designed for. The predatory motor sequence, the anticipatory positioning, the real-time environmental mapping, the cortisol sync, in your border collie, these don't operate as separate forces. They run as one system and you are the center of it. Every time you cross a room, that entire system activates and gets to work. Your border collie isn't following you out of neediness. They're on duty. You are their most important assignment, and they haven't clocked out once since the day they arrived in your home. The shift that matters isn't about training them to stop, it's about recognizing what the behavior is actually saying. Give me structure, give me a defined role, and show me you understand what I am. That's the message underneath every shadow, every sentinel post outside the bathroom door, every head that lifts the moment you shift your weight in a chair. Next time they follow you down the hallway and plant themselves at your feet while you stand at the counter, don't call it clingy. That's a working dog holding their position. This is what Collie Mind is here for. Not general dog advice, but the real psychology of this specific, extraordinary breed. Share this with every border collie handler you know, because most of them are reading this behavior wrong every single day. You stood up. They stood up. Now you know exactly why.